I wanted to talk about the basic kind of pros and cons that come along with simplification, or probably better termed simplification of magic and witchcraft and all this stuff. Um, the main reason I'm talking about this today, I recently did the review of Modern Demonolatry, um, the book. And it is an approach which kind of strips out all of the stuff that is considered you well, it is considered you don't need all of the various aspects, the incantations, the threats and everything else, and the circles and the triangles and all that stuff. It totally simplified the system of working with the Goetia. But more so, the reason why this topic has arisen, as it has today, um, is something I actually, it was Foolish Fish who did a kind of overall review of Gallery of Magic books, and the idea behind it, because there is a lot of controversy behind Gallery of Magic and Damon Brand. He's a known plagiarist, and that's why I don't recommend those books at all. But another reason I usually don't recommend those particular books is because they are oversimplified. Now, there are definitely some pros and cons. Foolish Fish was actually mentioning that it gets beginners through the door. It kind of allows them to step into the world of magic and witchcraft without the overcomplication of kind of being exposed to these systems all of a sudden, just being like having it thrown in your face kind of thing. So there is, in the area of pros in of simplification, there is the aspect of accessibility, and I do agree with that. And again, coming back to Gallery of Magic and Damon Brand, definitely don't recommend their books because of the plagiarism. But there are a lot of people out there who do, but kind of provide this simplification of the systems themselves. So there is that aspect of accessibility, which I get, I understand, and I actually agree with. So the whole idea of beginners getting their feet wet, stepping on into the world of magic, having this system which is simplified presented to them, then this is where things get a bit iffy. And this is where the cons start to come in, is that some people will continue with that simplification and not bother to look any further, whereas other people will go a bit more in depth of why is this working this way? Why are they doing it that way? So they will start to explore more and start to learn more, whereas other people won't, and that's where the problem comes in. But let's stick with the actual pros for the meantime. So another is pragmatism itself. Some people don't have the space to actually work magic. They don't have an extra room to create a temple. They may not even have. All they may have is just a space to sit down and just, be still. They don't. They can't build an altar. They can't do all of this stuff. So simplification of magic then becomes a necessity. Absolutely. Some people don't have the resources to gain these arcane tools within ceremonial magic, or collect rare herbs and all of this stuff. So, yes, simplification of a system in this regard works perfectly. And also, in our day and age now, we are often kind of presented with the problem that our day is so full. We get up, we get ready for work, we go to work, we come home. Basically, we just kind of relax for a little bit and go to bed. A lot of people work overtime to the point of exhaustion. And some people just don't have the time to squeeze in 5 minutes of meditation. Most of us do. A lot of us come home, we sit in front of the TV for 2 or 3 hours, and we could actually take some of that time and actually do the practice of magic. But there are some people who really, really do battle with time. So simplifying the systems in this regard, again, pro. Um, but let's now come to the cons. And this is where a lot of people have difficulty and a problem with the aspect of simplification of these magical systems. So the first one is loss of depth, and I think this is quite an apparent one. When we this is where things become a little bit difficult when we use this term simplification, because I also I'm actually I've already recorded the book review itself of Folk Witchcraft. It is coming up at the end of the month, but you know, in that regard, Roger J. Horne tends to simplify what he's talking about, but at the same time, there is no loss of depth. The depth is still there, it's still present. But the problem is, a lot of people, like coming back to Damon Brandon, Gallery of Magic, in their particular books, they take the magic system, they strip everything out that they consider not necessary, and they simplify the system. The problem is they remove the depth at the same time. They do not explain why you're doing certain things. It's just a case, it really does boil down to a case of, do this, it works, and it doesn't matter why it works. But it does. It really does matter why it works. And this is where we come up against this problem. You know, it's simplification to the point that the depth of the whole thing has been removed. It's been stripped out. And the reason why you're doing all of this stuff, why you're doing this particular ritual, why you're doing this particular thing, form of spell working, why it works, you know, the steps that you're taking, why you're taking those steps, it starts to become less important than the results. And if you don't understand where you came from, you don't know where you're going. And quite frankly, I think if in order to understand why something works, you should kind of understand why you did it in the first place, or the methods that you took. Why were you taking those particular steps to get to that point? But this, you know, this also comes to the idea of this shallow practice, the fast food spirituality that we have, the instant coffee society. Just add water and mix, and you've got the magic. And this kind of creates this completely hollow practice. You know, you're doing this stuff, that's fine, it's working and everything else, but it's hollow. There's no substance. It's just, there's nothing there to actually hold on to and grasp onto, because all of that depth, all of that stuff has been just removed, and it just becomes completely and utterly hollow. Some people are okay with that. I don't know how they're okay with that, but it's just, I feel like you need to know what's actually going on, why you're doing what you're doing. Otherwise, you know, if you're not questioning these things and you're just going, then you're just going on blind faith. And in magic, I don't think that really works very well. And I mean, you know, we have this idea that magic is not supposed to be easy all the time. It depends on the person, really. I mean, if a person comes along and they try a simplified system and it works for them, and they're happy with that, that's fine. You know, if you don't want to understand where things came from, you don't want to explore the depth of your practice itself, that's up to the person, that's up to them. And I think the sad part of that is that then the person just stays in that place. They don't really progress, they don't move forward, they don't grow, they don't expand. There's just the same kind of hollow practice over and over and over again. No exploration, no understanding, no learning. And that's, some people are happy with that. That's fine, absolutely fine with that. But it does create this problem that the simplification often presents the idea that you don't need to understand all that stuff. And I think you do. I think the way this should work. Okay, let's just present the way I think this should progress and go. Is that somebody comes along, they are completely new, they get exposed to magic and witchcraft. Now, what usually happens is they just get bombarded with all this knowledge and stuff, and they don't know which way to turn. And quite often that is a hindrance. So yes, come in, get exposed to these really, really simplified methods and ways of working. Get exposed to it, get a little bit of experience, get your foot through the door, okay? Then from there, you now have experienced it. You know what it's all about. You kind of you're starting on stepping forward and starting on your journey and everything else. Now take that simplified system and understand the depth of it. Understand what was stripped out. Go ahead and find out what was removed. Okay, and then understand the full system. And once you actually understand the full system, you have better knowledge. You have the complete view of what you did in the first place, whereas previously you only had a very, very small partial view. Now you've got the complete view. You understand the entirety of that particular system. Then when you understand it completely, then you can simplify it again. But through that simplifying or simplification, you then enhance, you expand, you understand what the depth was, and therefore you don't remove the depth through that simplification. And that's kind of, can't speak for everybody, but that's kind of like what the approach of simplifying magic and presenting it in a simplified form, that's what the person's done. All right. The problem is the person coming along and experiencing that, like being exposed to that simplified system, hasn't been through all of the other training, all of the other experiences. They don't know the depth to begin with. Okay, so they're just being exposed to the simplified system. So it really should be this idea of be exposed to the simplified system, experience it, get to know it, and get some confidence. Then go and explore the depth. Go and find out everything you can find out about what was taken out, what was removed, and experience that. Then come along and simplify it again in your own approach and how it fits in your practice itself, not somebody else's practice, your practice. And I think then it's a simplification with the depth included. Whereas being exposed to just the simplified system before you understand the depth completely and utterly removes the depth, and then it's a completely hollow practice. And that's what I hope people will avoid. But yeah, I guess we can call it intentional simplification. But anyway, right. I hope that made sense. I really don't know if it did. Trying to get this point across, and I'm not sure if I'm succeeding. So let me know in the comments if any of that made sense. But anyway, that's me for today. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Cheers. Bye bye.